It is a very good morning to you all and welcome to the Breakfast Club right here on Asake. My name is Fungai Mawada, hoping that you had a fantastic weekend and welcome to another exciting episode right here on the Breakfast Club. And as you know, as we promised, we are talking about the marriage bill. So to help me unpack the marriage bill, and remember, this is not legal advice in any way, but we're just trying to unpack the marriage bill to make it easier for everyone to understand. I am joined in studio by lawyer Nkosiyabo Sibanda. Good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Fungi, and good morning to your viewers.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. So I think maybe the first thing that people would ask is the marriage bill now law? Obviously, it did a rough passage throughout the years with a lot of NGOs and stakeholders talking about the law not coming into effect. So is it now officially law?
Thank you, Fungi, for that question. I will want to say that the marriage bill is now part of our law. It has since ceased to be a marriage bill, but it's now the law of Zimbabwe with regards to marriages specifically.
All right. And what is the difference between the previous marriage bill that was there and now the new law that is there? What are some of the key points which make a difference between the two?
Okay. So previously we had several pieces of legislation which were governing the marriage regimes in Zimbabwe. But the current Marriages Act is an omnibus law which covers, if I'm to put it in this way, the entire marriage regime in our country.
Okay. When you're talking about the entire marriage regime, what are you referring to exactly?
What this new Marriages Act has done, it has brought in several pieces of legislation which used to govern different marriage regimes in our country. That would be the customary law, the civil marriages, previously the 511. It has combined all of that to a single piece of legislation, which is the Marriages Act, Chapter 515.
All right. So essentially, at this point, all marriages are equal.
I would not want to say that. I would not want to say that all marriages are equal. But what this act does, it dedicates a specific section to a specific marriage where it describes the rights of the parties to that particular marriage which the parties would have chosen to contract under.
And then, of course, another interesting point is that the Act essentially criminalizes child marriages, which, of course, is a win in any aspect. So my question would be, in line with this new law, what does it mean for those who are currently in child marriages?
So the issue of child marriages in our country is the one that has been contentious. There's actually a recent constitutional court judgment, although it related to sexual offenses, but we see the issue of the age being a major factor in the new Marriages Act. You will note that the Act sets the minimum age of consent or the minimum age of marriage to be 18. So what it does, it simply bars anyone below the age of 18 from entering into any marriage. And it does not stop there. If you go to section 3, subsection 2 of the Act, it criminalizes the act of marrying anyone below the age of 18. So it is a win for the women in our country who have been in the forefront of wanting such a protection from, I think, our society, which is perceived to be, which previously was relaxed in terms of the age.
Very true. So what does it also mean for parents and guardians who are involved in any way in terms of solemnizing or giving permission to underage marriage?
Okay. So with regards to parents or a guardian who involves himself or herself in the marriage of a person who in terms of the law is not capable of contracting a marriage, the parents or the guardians are in terms of our law liable for prosecution because that has since been criminalized. Yes.
Okay, very interesting. And then moving on to a very interesting section of the marriage bill, it talks about unregistered marriages essentially. And according to a research I was reading, they're talking about how 80% of women, whether they're in the rural setup or in the urban areas, most of them are in unregistered marriages. So what does that particular section say about them being involved in unregistered marriages? Are there any rights that they have in terms of property? And then I remember there were debates, of course, online where they were talking about how this bill took a long time to pass because of the whole debates around lobola and whether lobola should be mandatory, what it means in the whole process. So maybe if you could just go through that particular section of the marriage bill for us.
Okay. So the current Marriages Act recognizes the unregistered customary law union to the extent that it has been registered within the prescribed 3 months period which is provided for in the Act. So the Act recognizes this marriage, but it then gives a requirement for its full recognition, which is the registering of the same within 3 months after the marriage has been conducted. But assuming the parties then they do not register the same, the Marriages Act further states that it protects the rights of the individuals who are in this marriage. They still have rights despite the fact that they have not registered their marriage per se. So you will note that the Act is not hard and fast on those who have not registered or complied with the 3 months period. It still recognizes them. Then with regards to the issue of lobola, the Act does not make a lobola a prerequisite to any marriage, but the Act makes a consent of the individuals involved, the age of the individuals involved as the essential elements to any marriage. So it removes even the parents from the or the guardians from this process, but it requires this man and this woman to find each other in terms of consent, that is the mental element and the physical element, and then their age. If it permits, one then can be married.
Okay, very interesting. And then maybe a lot of people would argue that this new law essentially protects what we refer to as small houses. Do you feel that it does protect small houses, or just generally people who are in relationships, whether outside of a civil union?
Well, okay. With regards to small houses, if I'm to put it in those brackets, I would want to assume that what we might term small houses might be recognized one way or the other in terms of the current Act. Maybe that form of arrangement might fall within the ambit of Section 41, which deals with what the Act describes as civil partnerships. So with these civil partnerships, there are essential elements that have to be looked into before one terms any arrangement a civil partnership. They are prescribed in terms of Section 41, and key to me, at least amongst them, is the aspect that these partners should have lived together. So we are yet to see how the courts interpret that. And Section 41 is so wide in defining what a civil partnership is. It gives the court the latitude to look at the circumstances, to look at the facts surrounding the matter, and then render a determination. So I suspect as we go forward in determining what is a civil partnership, the courts will probably have different formulas to define each and every case. We are likely not to have a one size fit all in terms of the definition of what a civil partnership is. And I suspect that in terms of the current law, those people, if they can produce that required evidence, they are then protected, and usually it's in respect of the property. So whatever those partners acquire during the tenure of their partnership, you will note that the law will require that it be shared amongst these partners in whatever contribution that the courts will have determined.
Okay, very interesting. And then moving on to property rights. Let's say a person is in a civil union and then they dissolve that particular union and then they get into a civil partnership. What happens to that particular property in that instance?
Okay, if I'm getting your question correctly, you are saying that this individual is involved in a civil union which is monogamous, and then they've contracted a civil partnership elsewhere, and then they are probably divorcing. What then happens to the property? In terms of the Marriages Act, it requires that the court looks into the property of these individuals who are in a civil union or in a civil marriage, and then restrain its findings on the property that can be identified to be part of the civil marriage. And then the property that is then identified as belonging to a civil partnership be left aside for that civil partnership. So what the law does is it bars the parties who are in a civil union to go for property in a civil partnership. That is my view with regards to what is in the Act.
Okay, very interesting. And as we wrap up this show, what are your, as a lawyer as well as an expert in this particular field, what are your sentiments on this particular Marriage Act? Do you feel like it's a step in the right direction in terms of Zimbabwean law? Do you feel like we have really taken a step forward in terms of, working together with international laws as well when we look at this particular marriage law?
Okay. So I will want to believe that it's a step in the right direction. It seems it is protecting everyone, and you will note that in the recent past, our courts have always bemoaned the situation of our marriage regimes that were applicable back then, where you will find parties living the marriage without anything. Primarily because of what the law would dictate one should get. So now with the coming in of the new Marriages Act, the law has in a way tried to cater for everyone, if I'm to put it in those terms. And as a country, we are modernizing in terms of our marriages law. We are following the trends of other countries. You talk of South Africa, they recognize such marriages and partnerships. So Zimbabwe, as it were, becomes a country in the global village which has taken a stance to advance its marriage laws. So I think it's a step in the right direction.
Okay, Nkosiyabo Sibanda, thank you so much for coming through to the studio and unpacking the marriage bill for us. We hope to have you again sometime in the near future to unpack some more issues when it comes to the law. But nonetheless, thank you so much for joining us at home. Make sure you join us again kusasa on the Breakfast Club right here on Asake, same time every time. My name is Fungai Mawada. Goodbye.